Welcome to the Goodwood Festival of Speed 2012. My name's Gordon Robertson and I'm here behind the scenes at the Porsche Experience Centre Goodwood, joined by a close friend and colleague, a Porsche legend, Mr. Richard Atwood. Richard was the first ever Le Mans winner for Porsche back in 1970, and today, in 2012, Richard is going to help Porsche create another first.
Yes, so it was a very big racing team, but it's a very small company really. But to further one's career, it obviously was a team to get with, and I joined it just at the right time because prior to 1968, the biggest car they made was a 3-litre, and in fact 69. And so it's very difficult to win with a basically an underpowered or undercapacitated car like the 2.28 cylinder. I think was the biggest one in 1968, and they managed to finish second. I think it was second that year, but they couldn't win it, and so they then designed and built cars that were much bigger, much faster, with the aim of winning the race outright. And my timing was perfect. It just happened to fall into place. From a driver's point of view, it's not as individual as something like a Grand Prix or sprint race because you're reliant on another co-driver. The car obviously has got to be together. The teamwork has got to be spot on. The pit stops and tyre and wheel changes, even the fuel and oils and everything else, and brakes, for instance, can make you have a stop that was unscheduled, and then you're not going to win the race. So it's all got to fall into place. So as I say, your question, it's not as personally satisfying as doing it on your own, because you can't do it on your own. That's why. Well, the 917 was a wild beast to start with, and it was tamed, and the reason was it was a very early day of aerodynamics. And not a lot was known throughout the world about aerodynamics. If one can trace your way back to the Formula One cars of 68 through to 69, had those big tall wings that were mounted on suspensions, really high things, which ultimately became banned because they were too dangerous. But that was Formula One technology trying to get a hold on aerodynamic advantages. And Porsche, being an all-enveloping body, was more difficult to shape correctly, and it took a year actually to get it right. But once it was right, it then became the most fantastic car. It won everything just about. It entered, and it didn't really end until the 5-litre Formula ended at the end of '71, and of course all those cars were banished from racing back to 3 litres. The favourite bit for me was a bit called the cutting, which came up to the beginning of the White House area, which was an extremely fast section, taken, I think, were around 160 miles an hour, and to get that right was really satisfying and made a big difference to the lap time, because the speed of that exit of that corner took you right through the Dunlop Bridge, which I think in most stuff that I can remember was flat out, all the way down to the S's. So it was very important to get that cutting and White House section correct. And to me, that was the most satisfying for me, definitely. I think the cars are more specific today, whereas in my day they were a bit more basic, and we didn't have so much grip and road holding and tyres. So it probably, to adapt from one car to another in the 60s and 70s, probably easier than today. The scariest moment with it, I can tell you straight away, was in the Belgian Grand Prix in 1965, and it was an extremely wet race, a lot of aquaplaning. I happened to hit a river of water at 150 miles an hour where the car snapped sideways, and instead of going into the wind at 150 miles an hour behind the protection of the screen, I was now looking through the side of the car, which of course was air coming straight onto me. At that speed was most terrifying moment. Fortunately, the car stayed on the road for the next 300 meters or so, but eventually it hit a telegraph pole, but had scrubbed off enough speed that I was not severely or even more so injured. I actually was not tutored in any way in my beginning of my career. I was basically self-taught because my father had paid for me with the cars he supplied, but I never had any tuition of any sort. And there weren't any racing schools then, and there are many now. But I always feel that if you're starting to feel uncomfortable with the speed you're doing, then reduce it to where you feel comfortable. If you're not comfortable, you're driving too fast, maybe for the conditions, maybe for your ability, or maybe for the ability of the car. But I think as long as you're comfortable and confident, I think it's to drive within reasonable limits. Is that there's, whether it's on the road or on the track is exactly the same to me. You know, they're all good. If I was going to take my family out for the weekend, I'd have a Cayenne. So, in fact, I need one of every model, and then I'll be a happy man.
So thanks very much for joining us. That pretty much concludes our session. I'd like to thank all our friends and enthusiasts from around the world who have joined us, and more so to the guys and girls who have asked us questions. It has been our first attempt at a Google Hangout. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed it. Richard, thank you, and I hope you thoroughly enjoy your weekend. Thanks to you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.